Hello and welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project, and thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I have a fantastic and fascinating guest with me today, and we're going to learn a lot about gut health and how it can help keep us healthy for the rest of our lives. His name is Josh Dech. He is a holistic nutritionist, gut specialist, medical lecturer, and former paramedic who realized that he was working in sick care rather than health care. This led him to pursue a career in the proactive healthcare field, achieving remarkable success with clients who had complex digestive diseases, which were previously thought to be impossible, that got him connected to some of the world's most renowned doctors. Since then, Josh has been recruited to the Priority Health Academy as a medical lecturer, helping to educate doctors on the holistic approach to gut health and complex digestive issues. He is also the host of the ReversABLE podcast, where he interviews the world's most renowned doctors and professionals how to naturally heal your gut and stay healthy. Josh, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Well, Cheryl, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for having me. That was quite the introduction.
Well, you have quite the story. You have quite the
Thank you.
bio and quite the story to share with the listeners. So let's just start from the beginning. Here you are, you're a paramedic, you're saving the world, right?
Naturally, I got my uniform. It's like a superhero suit, 100%.
Yeah, you got the cape and everything.
I did. No capes. I've seen The Incredibles. I know better. You get stuck in jet engines. Bad news.
So when did you realize that you really weren't accomplishing what you thought you would being in, and I'm using air quotes, healthcare?
Well, let's start from the beginning, like you said. So I'm a paramedic now. I'm 19 years old. I'm out of school. I'm getting started. I moved out to rural Newfoundland and started there, and it was awesome. I had such a good time. I really did enjoy the medical issues. So we had two types of calls. It's either medical or it's trauma. That's all it really is.
Mhm.
And so I really enjoyed those. I enjoyed the trauma. I enjoyed the emergencies, thinking on my feet. My ADHD brain just loved every second of the adrenaline. I just sucked it up like a sponge. But there was a happy chain of events. I always say it's divine intervention that just said you're not going to be a paramedic anymore. And so I ended up going out of Newfoundland. I wanted to look for a different job. So I came back to Ontario, my home province, tried to
Mhm.
find some work. I drove 12 hours north, every city along the way, met every manager, everybody I could, shook every hand. I took a 4-day trip and did this and couldn't find work anywhere. And so I came out to Alberta. I was like, well, I'll get a job out here. Well, licensing transferring was a big issue. So in the meantime, I just picked up a job in personal training, something I've been in the fitness sphere for a while. And I thought, well, this is pretty rad. I can do this in the meantime. And I fell in love with that instead. And it wasn't actually till I was reflecting back on paramedics that I realized paramedics in the healthcare system we have today, the Western healthcare system is sick care, not healthcare. And I'll tell you why. When I started my early career as a personal trainer, I was in my early 20s, probably 21, 22 years old. There was a woman who came to see me at 57 years old. Her name was Lynn. Now, Lynn, she was on 17 pills and insulin for breakfast. She had 9 pills and insulin for bedtime. So we're 26 pills deep. She had a CPAP machine to sleep. She had obviously sleep apnea. She had high blood pressure, and she was on the disability list at work. And that was the start of her issues. And as you know, with all these other issues, she's going to be borderline CHF or congestive heart failure. So all kinds of stuff going on, fluid retaining in her legs, and her health was just
Oh.
declining. Well, we started working together. And this is early in my career before I really had a clue. This is what unlocked for me the power and potential of the human body when given the right conditions. We
Mm.
started working together. After 2 years' time, some of her accomplishments, she was off all but 2 medications. Everything was gone. She actually got her glasses prescription renewed. Her eyesight got better as her blood sugar improved. So she was no longer diabetic, no longer needed CPAP. Instead of being on disability and taking the elevator up 30 floors to and from work, she ran the stairs every day, get up and down
Wow.
because she could. And now here she is from 57, being as sick as she was, 26 pills a day plus all these diagnoses, to being 59 years old. I put her in her first powerlifting competition, and Cheryl, she broke a world record.
Unbelievable.
Uh,
Unbelievable. And that says so much to not only the ability of the body to be able to heal itself when you give it the right environment, but
mhm.
it also says an awful lot about the tenacity of the human spirit.
Oh,
And
does it
I
ever?
really give this woman an incredible amount of credit, and I really respect her for where she was at the age of 57 and all the medications and not even being able to go up one flight of stairs, let alone 30, to be able to come to you for help. That had to
Oh
have
yeah.
taken an awful lot of either desperation or courage or a combination of both.
Yeah, well, I was working at this gym. I mean, sessions were $75 an hour. And so coming in from a single income home, husband was on disability at the time as well.
Oh,
Money was tight, but she's like, I need this. It was kind of her last straw. She said, I
yeah.
am all in, whatever it takes. And I often look at this to think a lot of people go, well, I don't have the money. And some people genuinely do not. You got 8 kids at home on a single income, you're strapped. But there are people who have an $800 a month car payment. There are people spending $400 a month on going out to eat, $50 a week on Starbucks. And we don't
Mhm,
really calculate these in our head. And really, it's a lack of priorities. And she
mhm,
put everything aside and said, no matter what it takes, this is my last hurrah because something has to change or I'm going to die. And she
mhm,
did. And not only did it trickle down for her and the rest of her life, removing these medications, but her entire family. Her daughter got into strength training and got into weightlifting and started doing the same, and she used to be also overweight when she was a teenager. She lost a ton of weight on her own already, but just she was had scoliosis. Her spine was in a really rough shape. She was able to fix all that stuff, and then those habits she built. My first thing I was like, "Okay, double what you're eating." And she trusted me because of her mom, and she did, and she's never looked back. And so she took this new education, these habits, to her daughter, who then grew up eating
mhm,
healthy, where things like gummies that most parents give their kids Dunkaroos and junk as lunch, those are treats. This is candy, and you can have
mhm,
it once in a while. And these habits trickled down in her entire family. And now generations after her are going to be changed because of the tenacity this woman had to take her health into her own hands. And opening the door now for me as a professional to see
mhm,
this is what can be done.
mhm.
There was another happy chain of events. My whole life is happy accidents. And I was actually at this trade show doing another gig for another job. And I heard someone talking. I said, my boss at the time, Lauren, I said, I gotta go. She says, no problem. You do you, Josh. Just she saw the passion in my eyes. And there was this woman talking about the gut microbiome and how it varies from right from birth. The
Mhm,
importance of it, how it's connected, whether you're born vaginal or C-section, if you're breastfed or bottle fed, and every aspect of this. I was just the whole hour I sat there with my mouth jaw on the floor, and I love at first sight. I said, that is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. And so I saved up. I went back to school, and my wife, bless her, we made it work because at the time it was also, we were strapped too. She
mhm.
says, this is really what you need to do. I said, yes. And so she made it work. And I went back to school, and I'm now a holistic nutritionist. I specialize now in the worst gut diseases, Crohn's and colitis, and we're changing lives
Wow.
where Western medicine is not. The rest is history.
Mhm. Wow, like I said, what a story. I just love that. But I wanna go back, just when you were talking about, setting priorities and where you want to invest yourself. I'm not saying spend your money, invest, because you really are investing in your health, you're investing in yourself. And if you are going out to eat, the $400 dinners or whatever, $400 a month, what you are putting into your body is really not the best quality food that you could.
Absolutely. I
Same
mean,
thing with the Starbucks.
yeah, well, Starbucks, look at the sugar in these things. There was a viral post that went around recently. Dunkin' Donuts, they have this large caramel grande frappuccino thing. It's 156 grams of sugar with the whipped cream,
Oh,
right? That's like 2 dozen donuts. Can you imagine eating that? And people will drink that down and wonder why we're so sick and everything's going so wrong. But here's the thing, and I just want to preface for everybody listening, if you do not have the money to physically invest finances, the greatest resource you have, you can invest is your time and your attention. And so,
mhm.
what you focus on, what you put your time to, how you prioritize those hours. Do you get up half an hour extra early in the morning? I don't care if you're doing 20 air squats, you're putting something in your mind to move differently. And this is how we start to bridge the gap to understand your body is capable. Digestive diseases, Crohn's and colitis, where I specialize, aside, these are the foundations for basic fundamentals of understanding that your health is in your hands.
Mhm. And I love the fact that you're saying just small changes, get up in the morning and just do a few air squats, whatever. You're starting to change the pathways in your brain. You're starting to
Mhm.
think differently, and then you build from there. You're building a little foundation, and then you just kind of add to it, and you get exponential change and exponential growth. You just have to start and take
Yes.
those first few steps.
Yeah, it's a compound effect. And that's exactly it. You start today. There's a great question we can always ask ourselves. Somebody will ask, would you rather have $1 million right now, or would you rather have a penny doubled every day for 30 days? Well, if you do the math on it, I don't know how it's like 2.5 or $4 million if you double the penny every day. And those
Mhm,
little habits compound. Most of us want
mhm,
the right here, right now, and
mhm,
nothing in life works that way. But unfortunately, our industries, the health industry, has really sold us quick fixes. It's what can
mhm,
I take? What supplement can I purchase? What can I put
mhm.
in rather than what can I change? And once we change that mentality, take ownership over what effectively is our choice, no matter how much it sucks, no matter how hard it is, no matter what's going on, it is our choice to make. We have to own that and take ownership, and that is empowerment at its truest core.
And I keep going back to in my head, I have this image of Lynn. I've never seen her. I don't know what she looks like, but I have, and these words are going through my head, be like Lynn, or, make that choice, make that change. And I'm really curious, are you still in touch with her?
Once in a while. So I've semi-retired from personal training. I have some clients I've had for years and
Right.
years and years. And I actually keep them on my roster still just because I enjoy them and it keeps me
Mhm,
on the schedule. I'm up at 5:30. I'm in the gym for 6:30. I
mhm,
finish with them. I do my workout. I'm home and working by 9, 10 o'clock. Like
mhm.
it's really nice to have those still. But I am retired now from personal training for quite a while. And so she, for her own stuff, life stuff happened, and so she, ways split. That was really after COVID. We kind of just parted ways officially, but we are still in touch once in a while. And for a while there, she was also selling me weed gummies because her husband would make these caramels with the weed in them, and so they'd be great for sleep. So she went from being a client to a friend to a drug dealer. It was great.
Wow. Okay, I'm a little bit envious because out of all of my clients that I have had over the years and still do, there's a lot of them, and we've become really good friends, but none of them became a drug dealer for me.
That's okay. Small
Yeah.
stuff, small potatoes. Don't tell the
Yeah.
DEA.
Well, remember, I live in Colorado, so there is never any problem if anybody wants to get something. I know,
No, you're
really, it's changed quite a bit over the
good.
years.
Yes, it has. I'm in Calgary, Alberta. I get you.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so let's talk about gut health because this is something I want to say that it's relatively new as a topic and as a subject because nobody ever talked about it before. And it's like
Mhm.
over the past several years, it's getting more and more mainstream. People are talking about it. So explain, like you were talking about the microbes and the bacteria. And so educate us on gut health.
Mm. Wow. Okay, that's the last 10 years of my life. So let's summarize as best we can. Here's what we need to know. The first thing is to establish a reverence for our gut and our gut bacterium. So here's what we need to know. About, we'll say 2 to 3% of the average weight of an entire human body is just bacteria. They outnumber your cells about 10 to 1. And a doctor out of University of Tel Aviv, he's in many circles considered the father of autoimmunity. He studies gut and gut disease and gut health. And he says we are born 99% human cells, 1% of your body is bacteria. That's what you get in utero. It's what you get when you're born, coming through the birth canal, 1%. By the time we die, we are 10% human cells, 90% bacteria, outnumbering our cells 10 to 1. And so we have about 100 trillion bacteria living in our gut. They connect to everything. Cheryl, I'm telling you, they help you with weight gain and weight loss, energy, moods, sleep, how social you feel like being, your immune system. Up to 90% of your immune system is within your gut. That's where your immune cells are grown and matured. Our gut bacteria do everything. They produce certain vitamins and they extract minerals. They detoxify. They are chemical signals. They're responsible for stress and anxiety and thyroid problems. They do everything. I argue they may be more important than our DNA. And so we hear this and go, okay, well, that's really neat. I'll give you a little anecdote. Cheryl, are you familiar with a condition called toxoplasmosis?
I have heard it before, but I don't know what it is.
Any of your listeners who may have been pregnant before might be familiar with the term when your doctor says, if you're pregnant, don't change the kitty litter because the cat litter has this parasite called Toxoplasma gondii. Now, this is just to illustrate the sheer power of a small thing. Toxoplasma gondii is a parasite that actually infects and changes your brain and changes, it can actually control a host. And what it'll do, like every living organism has a prime directive. It says, I want to get to a place where I can live my best life, where I can grow, where I can breed, where I can have babies, where I can whatever, like humans, even parasites. So this parasite, its job, it actually tries to get to the belly of a cat. That's where it can live the most. Any cat, a lion, a tiger, bears, oh my, any cat. And so what it does, it actually overrides mice, which might seem stupid because mice are afraid of cats, they run away. But here's what happens. This Toxoplasma gondii parasite, it actually gets into the mouse, it gets into the brain, it actually burns out the dendrites in the fear center of this mouse's brain, making it no longer afraid of cats. But it goes one step further. What it does then is it overrides the mouse's brain and rewires it, reprograms it to be sexually attracted to the smell of cat urine. So now the mouse seeks the cat, and the mouse is not afraid of the cat. The mouse gets eaten by the cat, parasite enters cat's belly, and now that parasite can live its best life. And so, right, complete override. Okay, now here's something else for you. It's been tested in humans. There's been studies where they found humans. You see these videos of people doing amazing feats, running into a burning building, jumping in front of the street to save a stranger, push a dog out of the way. Many of these people have tested positive for Toxoplasma gondii parasites because it's overridden their brains as well to burn out that fear center. Now, why would it infect humans? Well, in Eastern countries, one of the only predators of humans is big cats in the jungle. And so that parasite will enter anywhere. It can enter the belly of any kind of cat. And this is the power of one small microbe or one small parasite can completely override a mouse or a human or anything. Now, we have 100 trillion bacteria, not just 100 trillion bacteria living inside of our gut in harmony with fungi and parasites and viruses, which actually outnumber bacteria 35 to 1. We are just walking bags of bacteria. And so that's the power. So imagine if these things are all in alignment, Cheryl, what can they do for you or what can they do to you if you have a problem in
Mhm.
your gut? And that's
Mhm.
something we need to consider.
Mhm. Wow, that was a head full. What a story. I mean, I never even knew that. That's just incredible. Because I think that when we think about bacteria, bacteria in our stomach or whatever, we think that all bacteria bad, all viruses bad, fungi, oh, terrible.
Mhm.
So are you saying that we have to have the proper balance between all of those microbes to be healthy?
Absolutely. It's an ecosystem and it's not
Mm,
about what's good, what's bad. It's about harmony, right? So everybody contributes to the economy in some way, right? Whether you are a drug dealer or somebody in the gang, right? Even prison system, it's a financial thing. There's money made there.
mhm,
So they contribute in every way, whether you're a police officer or a teacher, right? At some way in your ecosystem, your economy, you're contributing. Well, the
mhm,
ecosystem of your gut has these quote bad guys. We look at certain strains of E. coli. There are many E. coli strains, so to speak. Candida, we hear Candida, bad, bad, bad. Well, Candida is a yeast, but it's actually very beneficial in small amounts. And I'll
mhm,
imagine your entire city is just gang members going around shooting each other up. Now we have a problem. And
mhm,
that is where diseases start to arise from the gut. This is called dysbiosis. It's bacterial imbalance. But
mhm,
when everything is in balance and in harmony, now
mhm,
these so-called bad guys become good guys because they're contributing to your body in some way, shape, or form. They're keeping things in check and balance. And gut health is the root of all disease. We know 93% of the leading causes of death in the USA, and I mean strokes, heart disease, liver disease, kidney
mhm,
disease, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, these diabetes, they're all connected back to the gut. And so if we can prevent 14 out of 15 of the 15th leading cause of death is self-harm, injury, suicide. So that means everything we're calling a quote natural cause of death isn't in fact natural at all. It's just normal because it's so frequent, because
mhm,
everybody's sick. But if we can
mhm,
correct our guts and start there, not only can we prevent these major diseases that I deal in, which is Crohn's and colitis, but we can also prevent many other diseases as well.
mhm. Now, I'm kind of thinking that why we do have so much disease is because that gut health or the gut bacteria or the little community, let's say the
Yes.
ecosystem, gets out of balance. And I'm kind of guessing that they're getting out of balance because of the foods that we eat.
That is a large part of it. I'll throw something at you. So I know you're doing video here as well. I just happen to have this next to me because I just created this 48 hours ago. This is like the last 10 years of my life, distilled down to three simple circles. It's a Venn diagram. And so when I talk about gut health, for me, this is what I'm actually trying to unwind 30 years of medical research. I spent so much time saying, okay, well, IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, is very different than IBD, inflammatory bowel disease, or Crohn's colitis. And so even in medicine, you'll see in studies there's a Venn diagram. where they're
Mhm.
actually overlapped and the symptoms are almost identical. It's just a level of severity. And so we look at this. Gut disease comes on in two ways. Number one, it's very rapid. Somebody is very healthy one day, and within a couple of days, weeks, or just a few months, they have blood in the stool, they're inflamed, they're bloated, they feel terrible. Transit time is 5 minutes, and they're having 40 bowel movements a day.
Oh.
Or it's progressive. It's a little bloat today. And then next week, it's a little bit of loose stool. In a year from now, it's, a little bit of constipation. And a couple years from then, it's back to loose stool, but now you have psoriasis and eczema. And then a couple years later, you have anxiety. And then 10 years down the road, now you've got blood in the stool. It's a wear and tear, like you're wearing a
Mhm.
pair of shoes without socks and that heel rubbed till it blistered and bled.
Mhm.
And so we're talking about what onsets gut issues. Bacteria is a big one. What we eat is a big one. But I have this little Venn diagram here you can see. Okay.
I
And I'll
see.
break it
Very
down
nice.
for you.
Yes.
Right? Very
Mhm.
pretty. Thank you. Designed it myself. So here's what we have on the outside. These are the causes of gut dysfunction, which wears and tears like the heel in a shoe without socks until it becomes gut disease. And this is why I say, even the worst gut disease, Western medicine goes, well, Crohn's and colitis is autoimmune. No question. That's it. Full stop. Nothing can be done. Take the drugs and hope for the best. And maybe we don't cut out your colon. Maybe. But what we say is no, no, no. It's inflamed. It's on a spectrum of severity. Dr. Amy Myers coined the term the autoimmune spectrum. Where are
Mhm.
you? How severe are you? How many
Mhm.
symptoms? How many layers? How many autoimmune conditions? And so, this outside circle, these first three things for our listeners, these are the things that contribute to inflammation in your gut. The inner circle is what contributes to autoimmunity. Okay. So, the first one is toxins. Toxins can be anything. That can be mold. 40% of homes in the USA have a mold problem. And that mold, very common ones like ochratoxin A or aflatoxins, we call them, can come from wet walls, come from soil and plants and all kinds. And that's a major contributor for things like asthma. My sister-in-law, she had asthma her entire life. I went over a quick history. I thought, I suspect you've got mold. Did a urine test. She's got mold. And she grew up in a house that was a little bit damp, growing up and, mice in the house and stuff like that. So toxins, whether it's mold, whether it's environmental toxins, cleaning chemicals, heavy metals, whatever it is, there's so many toxins. Our world is
Mhm.
polluted, can be antibiotics and medication. So that's number one. These toxins come in. They disrupt the gut biome and detoxification processes because your body has to detoxify these toxins. And so they disrupt bacteria and all kinds. That's number one. Number two is microbial imbalances. Now, if those microbes are, we have, now remember, we talk about the gut microbiome, right? That's
Mhm.
100 trillion in your gut. We have microbiomes everywhere, right?
Mhm.
Oral, rectal, vaginal, in your sinuses, in your hair, your scalp, your
Mhm.
skin, the skin in your crotch, in your armpits. Those pits are different microbiomes. And so these microbiomes, like neighborhoods in a city, they all talk to each other. That's what makes a
Mhm.
city a city. Same thing
Mhm.
in your body. And so bacterial imbalances anywhere can create bacterial or microbial imbalances. So whether
Mhm.
it's microbes like yeast and candida, microbes like good or bad bacteria, parasites, these are all microbes. Those imbalances cause more problems. So now we
Mhm.
have toxins coming from everywhere. We have microbes from all these neighborhoods. The third one, the most important, like you mentioned, is food. But I put food or diet and nutrient deficiencies in the same category. It mostly because I'd have a fourth circle in my Venn diagram wouldn't work. But if we look at this, diet being poor, of course, right? What we're eating, inflammatory foods, fried foods, processed foods, packaged foods, these things are void of nutrients. In nutrients, we often look at just carbs, fat, protein, right?
Mhm.
We've even started including fiber, but we often miss the micronutrients. These are macros, right? The micros are vitamins, minerals, and water. And so we need vitamins and minerals for all kinds of processes. They are catalysts for your cells to do what they do, for your liver to detoxify, for nerves to generate, for things to just be healthy, for your immune system to grow new immune cells. We need these vitamins, minerals. And so if we have now toxins coming in, we have microbial imbalances, and we have a poor diet, which A, causes inflammation, or B, leads to nutrient deficiencies,
Mhm.
then we have this trifecta to set us up for disease somewhere. And if your
Mhm.
weak link is your gut, then you're going to have issues in the gut. You pull on a chain, it breaks at the weak link. If your weak link is thyroid, because you go, oh, thyroid runs in my family, arthritis runs in my family, that genetics doesn't mean you're guaranteed to get it. It means you are prone. And so your inflammation is expressed through that way. And so I could just as well be high stress and have a gut issue as somebody else could be high stress and get headaches or get arthritis or get a rash and break out in eczema because that stress is disrupting, say, that microbiome on your skin, whereas mine and my gut gets disrupted. So everyone's different. So we have now on the outside, we have toxins, microbial imbalances, and we have diet or nutrient deficiencies. Those are the three things leading to gut dysfunction, gut disease,
Mhm.
or really any
Mhm.
disease. Now, on the inside, if those are bad enough to become autoimmune, to turn into something severe, not all Crohn's and colitis is autoimmune. I vehemently disagree, and that's what I lecture on. But say it was, for example, well, genetics, number one. Some people have like an NOT2 or NOD2 gene, get my words all mixed up. They have like an IL-26 or whatever type of
Mhm.
gene mutation you might have. You might be more prone now to getting Crohn's disease as a digestive disease. There's also a trigger we need. And a trigger can be anything. It can be moving countries. It can be a trauma, physical, psychological, emotional. It can be having a baby, right? These are all like big triggers, a stressful event, family member died, whatever it is. These can be triggers. Um, Going to medical school for 8 years, that's an extended trigger, right? That causes
Mhm.
stress. And the third piece to lead autoimmunity is leaky gut. You will not
Mhm.
find an autoimmune condition without leaky gut. And so when that gut becomes leaky, what happens is these cells, I'm on a tangent now, but these cells actually spread apart. Now we have movement of food and nutrients through our cells, through our gut lining. It's one cell thick to get into our blood or lymphatic system.
Mhm.
But what happens, these are broken down to their finest parts, tiny amino acids and molecules that pass through that your body can circulate and use. But if we have inflammation from toxins, microbial imbalances, or nutrient deficiencies, stack it with some kind of trigger genetics, what happens, these leaks become large. Now, instead of micromolecules leaking through, we now have macromolecules. You can
Mhm.
literally see a live blood analysis. You can see a piece of chicken in somebody's blood. Your body can't use that. It goes, hey, man, it's a tiny piece of, it's not like a strip you could eat.
Yeah,
Um,
but
but
still.
but still, right? You can visualize, go, that's protein, that's chicken. And so what happens, your body goes, hey man, you should not be here. Red flag. Your immune system bumps up and says that's a problem. Now, next time you eat chicken, well, this answers why you have food sensitivities stacking on top of each other, because these IgG or IgM reactions start to multiply and stack, leading to elevated immune system, leading to further leaky gut, potentiating these effects. And now we have a stack of all these different perfect storms causing
Mhm.
gut disease or disease anywhere else.
So it's basically the opposite of what we were talking about, trying to, get healthy, taking those first small steps because those steps do add up and, creating healthy habits. And you get this exponential growth and this exponential change. So that's exactly what's happening there, but in the reverse, direction.
100%. It's all these little things. It's death by a thousand cuts, right?
Mm.
Great pun for the, or great analogy for the FemiNinja with all these swords behind you. Um,
Thank
but
you.
it's death by a thousand cuts, where it's one thing after another until you bleed out. And now your
Mhm.
body is effectively broken down in so many pathways, it just can't keep up, right? You
Mhm.
have termites chewing a hole in your little wall, right? No big deal. Psh, spray them out, you're fine. But the second you have termites surrounding the house, gone.
Mhm.
And you can't, there's not enough of you to keep up. And that's
Mhm.
effectively what we run into with so many people getting sick and developing gut disease.
So, of course, the good news is, though, that this can be reversible.
Yes, that's the title of my podcast,
Oh,
Reverse
well,
Able,
yeah.
the ultimate gut health
You're
podcast.
welcome.
Yes,
That just was a nice, smooth little segue there to get your
look at
podcast in there.
us.
But I think that, and I think this is a really important point that I want to make, and I want to highlight for the listeners because, we might hear, and I've told you a little bit about my history, that you're never going to get any better. You're always going to have this chronic pain. You're going to get on
Mm,
disability, but don't worry, we'll take care of you. And here, have some more medication because it's really good for you. But, we can actually we don't have to go that route. We actually do have our bodies are incredible, and
yeah.
they have an incredible capacity to heal. And just looking back again at Lynn and all the medications she was on, and then ended up, breaking records powerlifting, 2 years later. So, how would we go about correcting this? Or stopping this train or changing the path
Mm,
that we're on. And I know a lot of it's going to be nutrition wise. I really want you to highlight what happens when we do eat things like processed foods.
mm,
We do drink that triple mocha chocolate shake, whatever, with a splash of coffee in it. What happens?
mm. I love that we keep talking about Lynn. This jacket I'm wearing is actually 2019 from one of the last powerlifting competitions we did with her.
Ooh.
Right? Little memento. So here's the thing. when we eat these things, we drink something that irritates us, right? We all know what it feels like to be bloated. We all know what it feels like to eat something and our transit time is 10 minutes. So I'm sure many of
Mhm.
us has been there, right? That's an irritation. And what happens, your body creates leaky gut. Now, leaky gut is a defense mechanism. It's a good thing. We hear it, it's always in bad context. But the
Mhm.
reality is, what happens if I eat something I shouldn't, my body goes, oh, you're a problem. So it
Mhm.
actually opens the cells, right, to draw water in like the elevator on The Shining, just water, not blood. Not yet, till it gets really bad. But what happens, it opens it up. It's like putting your thumb over the hose to, wash down the driveway. And so it creates leaks in order to flush things out quickly so you don't have to break it down and absorb it into your system because your body's trying to get rid of it. It's
Mhm.
sustained leaky gut. So we consume things that are artificial sweeteners. We consume things that are toxic. Like most of the food we eat, 80+% of the American diet today, the standard American diet acronym, SAD, right? Ironies on us. The acronym, when we look at this, 80% of our diet fits in that acronym of standard American diet, which is processed, refined, nutrient void. Now, it's no wonder we've had a spike in these diseases since the 1950s when all these artificial foods started coming in, seed oils and other things, and obesity crisis, and all kinds of heart disease and liver disease, high fructose corn syrup. These things are sludge in an engine. And not only one, do they precipitate leaky gut, two, imagine the sugars, like 156 grams in one of these Dunkin' Donuts, caramel lattes. That's 156 grams of sugar. What loves sugar? Well, yeast, fungus, candidas, opportunistic bacteria, we call it. That's the bad guys. And so sugar can suppress the immune system by a number of ways. It causes inflammation. Your body's got to detox it. Your immune system only has so many resources to put in so many places. So it kind of divides and conquers, which sort of weakens your ability to fight off like a flu and basic things. It's part of it.
Mhm.
But it contributes to inflammation. And these opportunistic bacteria, we call them, take the opportunity when you're inflamed to overgrow. They consume the sugars. They love that shit. Bad bacteria loves sugar. Now, again, the
Mhm.
bad imbalance is fine, but when given the opportunity, it's problematic. Yeast is an opportunistic pathogen. And so
Mhm.
fungus can overgrow. And not only that, but our livers, your liver next to your brain and your heart is the most important organ in the body, I would argue. Now, they obviously all have their purpose, but the liver's got 500 plus chemical functions. There's been arguments made to say up to 2,000. It detoxifies and digests and metabolizes. It helps balance hormones and blood sugar and water. It communicates with your kidneys to balance out sodium. Like it does so much for you. And so, high fructose corn syrup, and here's a fun anecdote, it's supposed to be the leading cause of non alcoholic fatty liver disease by 2025. And I had a client of mine a couple years back. She's a medical doctor in Utah. We were talking about this, and she was at a conference about non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And they brought this up, said by 2025, we expect this to be the leading cause for liver transplants by 2025. And they said what we think the main culprit is high fructose corn syrup, which we see in Coca-Cola, we see it in bars and sugars, we see it in protein bars, it's everywhere. They expect that
Whoa.
to be the number one cause. You know what the speaker said? It's okay. So and so company is working on this new medication that can help.
Oh, God.
Right? She looks around and everyone's writing notes, and she's 400 doctors in the room, and nobody's going, hand up. Should we
Excuse
talk
me?
about the diet? Nothing. Back to the medications. And that's what's so, I don't know if I can say drop the F bombs here, but that's what's so messed up about this system is we're not
Wow.
thinking critically. It's cookbook medicine. And so we consume all these things that are sludge in the engine, your body can't process. And what it does, it stores them all as fat, it stores it in the liver, fat builds up inside of your liver, leading to fatty liver. And imagine somebody who's obese can't run up and down stairs, right? They can't perform functions optimally. Your liver, when it's obese, so to speak, when it's gaining all these fat cells and storing fat inside of it, it can't perform its functions normally either. Simple analogy. And so the idea is we have to get our body clear and clean of these
Mhm.
things. It's got a pecking order. Number one, let's get rid of poison because poison kills us. So when you drink, why get indigestion when you drink? One, yeah, it's bad for your gut bacteria in your gut.
Mhm.
But number two, your liver puts that at the top of the pecking order. Says, I'm not going to digest the food you're eating, that burger, those french fries, those greasy foods you like to eat when we're drinking. I got to get rid of the poison first. So now it's not helping digest and metabolize food. So now you have this partially undigested, hyperfermentation, all this junk, and you get this gut issue because of that. And the alcohol is slowing down your normal systems. And so any toxins we bring in, any artificial sweeteners, these sugar syrups and these drinks that we pump at Starbucks, all these things contribute one to bacterial imbalances. Remember, we have toxins, bacterial imbalances, and nutrient deficiencies, right? Those are the main things that cause
Mhm.
problems. Well, toxins, those things are toxins. Your body doesn't know what to do with them. It doesn't know what to do with yellow, sunset yellow FCF and red dye 40. It can't process these things. They cause neurological issues. These aren't foods your great great grandmother would recognize as edible. So we probably shouldn't eat it. It's that simple. And so, one, that's toxins. Number two, those sugars contribute to your bacterial imbalances. And number three, those foods, not only are they void of nutrients themselves, they're empty calories, but imagine your house is on fire. You have a limited water supply. You got water coming out of a well for your house. Your house is on fire. That well is going to dry up pretty freaking quick trying to put
Mhm.
the fire out. But if you're just using the water to bathe and drink water and feed your family during the week, you got lots of water to spare. Nutrients are the same. We have a reservoir of nutrients that come in. When you're inflamed, you're consuming sugars and toxins and all this junk. Your body has to use nutrients, vitamins, minerals in excess as a resource to try to put the fire out. Well, you're running your well dry. And now we're consuming foods and calories without extra nutrients. So we have no more water to put out the fire. We're not consuming vitamins and minerals.
Mhm.
And so what your body does is it leaches it from other places. And so people who have been sick or have gut issues and go, well, my thyroid's messy. Yep. That's an imbalance. That's a nutrient imbalance because
Mhm.
thyroid is balanced between your gut and your liver as well. And we need nutrients. My hair is brittle. Well, guess what? Your teeth are sensitive. Your body's leaching minerals from hair and teeth to support your body elsewhere. Well, I have osteoporosis. Okay, why is your body leaching minerals from your bones to support you? What are you not consuming in excess that your body can then use? Your well is
Mhm.
empty. It's pulling from other wells. And now we develop other diseases. Then we go to the doctor and they say, well, it's osteoporosis. So here's a new supplement. It's basically fertilizer for your bones. Okay. And here's some calcium. Calcium doesn't build up bone density. Your bones are built of, I don't know, it's like 18 different minerals or something. I
Mhm.
forget the number. But calcium's not going to do shit for you. You're leaching them from your bones. So let's correct the reason your house is on fire. That's number one. Number two, fill the reservoir. And then we can reverse diseases this way. But unfortunately, in so many instances, we go to the doctor, we take our drugs, we take our pills and go, oh, I have
Mhm.
this diagnosis. Oh, I have arthritis. Oh, I have
Mhm.
this problem. I have digestive disease. I have Crohn's and colitis. And we go, this is just me now. I accept this from my doctor. A diagnosis is a Simply put, it is a one word that explains a current state of affairs. It is a
Mhm.
circumstance. It is not a forever thing. It's one word that describes the symptoms, and symptoms are breakdown. We just have to reverse that process and reverse engineer. And this is why we can reverse Crohn's and colitis so easily in people because we reverse engineered how they got there in the first place.
So I just heard a choir of angels begin to sing when you said that about, you are not your diagnosis. It is
Mm,
not something that's permanent. Don't let a diagnosis define you
mhm.
because it,
100%.
yeah, it is again reversible. And I have to keep I'm like a dog with a bone when it comes to that sugar thing because, fortunately, I mean, I personally don't really have a sweet tooth, and when I started, it's probably in my early 40s, I started really looking at labels and reading labels in the grocery store, and I was absolutely horrified to
Mm,
see what's in the foods that we buy and the foods that we eat, and sugar is just ubiquitous. It's in everything. And I was actually really shocked. And when I found out, it was some networking group, a woman was speaking that in 1 gram of sugar is the equivalent of what, like 4 teaspoons of sugar? Is that correct?
that's a great, I think it might be 5 grams to a teaspoon. I could be mistaken.
And-
Um, yeah, but let me see. I'm going to look it up right now. Teaspoon. I almost spelled teaspoon wrong. 4 grams of sugar in a teaspoon,
Oh, okay. Okay.
which is still a lot. I mean, you think about it. If you consume, for example, one can of Coca-Cola, what's that? 35 grams of sugar,
Right.
right?
Right.
It's a lot of sugar and it's in high fructose corn syrup. So I
Oh,
used to have this habit when I was in my teens. I loved ice cold Pepsi on a hot day. Loved it. It was so refreshing. The bubbles, it just like did it for me in the right way. A couple years back, I was like, it was a hot day. It was in the middle of the summer, long day. I'm like, why don't I'll just grab a Pepsi. I'll just have one. Cheryl, I got 3 sips in and had a pounding headache. That high
wow.
fructose corn syrup, right? It's not something your body has to break down. You can literally swish it around in your mouth. It will absorb through the buccal folds and right into the mucous membranes, right into your blood, straight to your brain. And I had a headache instantly. I took a sip, within minutes, pop, there it was. I dumped it up like, this is disgusting. But
Mhm.
the thing is, we get so used to it. Our
Mhm.
body adapts to feeling like shit. So we don't know what it's like to not feel like shit. It's like being in a
Mhm.
bad relationship. You don't know what it's like to be in a good one till you're in a good one. Then you go back to
Mhm.
the bad one. You're like, whoa, this is dysfunctional. This is a
Mhm.
problem. And that's how it is with food. We often have to cut it and then
Mhm.
see what it's like to go back.
Well, this brings me to, like, okay, going down a rabbit hole here.
Please.
But or on a tangent, but okay, so which makes me question why that it's still on the market. Why is high fructose corn syrup still in some of our products that we buy and eat and consume? Why, is it because we don't have to worry about it because they're always creating new medications to be able to medicate us so we can eat and drink whatever we want
Hmm.
and not even consider the consequences?
Here's my thoughts. You see my hairline here, Cheryl?
Yes, I
That's
do.
because my tinfoil hat has been rubbing so much and it's gotten
I
pushed
see.
back there. Here's my theory. I firmly believe that our government regulating organizations do not give a shit about our health. They could care
Mm,
less. They
mhm.
could care less if we're sick, if we're ill, because I mean, sickness and disease is a $4.5 trillion business in the US. Diabetes alone, I mean, was it, I think it's 40% of all Americans, maybe 60, are pre-diabetic. 10% are diagnosed diabetics and on medication. 60% of adults, 65% of adults over 50 years old are on 3 or more prescription medications. The best business model is a monthly subscription revenue. And so you get CEOs who move from Monsanto or Bayer or these other organizations who then move to the FDA and they're now a CEO there. Then they move from there
Mhm,
and now they work for a pharmaceutical company and then they go
mhm.
work for a big food producer. And so it's this very incestuous pool. Now, can I say they're deliberately malicious and everybody's evil? No, but maybe. I'm not going to rule it out. But the idea is it's a big handshaking, back scratching club. And what happens is you have food that makes you sick, right? Monsanto and Bayer just recently paid out for uh, what you call it there, glyphosate. It's on our
Mm,
food. They spray it on everything. Billions and billions of dollars in lawsuits, known because it's caused cancer. Pfizer has spent over $7 billion in criminal fines for lying to the public and misleading users and falsifying data and information. And so, unfortunately, they're too big to fail. So many people, 60% of the US population, what's that, 250, 60 million people, are dependent on these medications to survive because they're so sick. And so they just simply pay a fine, slap on the wrist, and now it's just the cost of doing business. And so there's no incentive at all for them to get real food out there. And there's no money to be made in agriculture, farming, and regular things. The money is in fake foods, the money is in lab grown foods. Green plant-based meats or lab-grown meats. The money is in these food-like substances. There's not enough money in bioregenerative organic farming. Our nutrients, our soil is so dead and void of nutrients. Mother Earth is suffocating because she can't breathe, because the top layer, we're tilling soil. It's just dirt to grow a seed. There's no microbes and bacterium living
mhm,
in there to grow and nurture plants and make things nutrient dense. It's just our food is trash. Our system is
mhm,
trash. All we do is mask symptoms. And
mhm,
I mean, that's a great segue. The real reason I have a problem with Western medicine, we go in and we look at, okay, here's your symptoms. Therefore, this is your diagnosis. Therefore, we give you this drug A, B, C, and D in this order if those don't work. And that's
mhm,
it. Full stop. Functional medicine goes, okay, here's your diagnosis. Therefore, I know these are your symptoms. Therefore, let's figure out when these started. And we go back and work backward to figure out the dysfunction that led to
mhm.
breakdown, that led to disease. And Western medicine just masks everything. And so there's no incentive to have good quality food, to have people eat nutrients. You'd be stunned the amount of times I've gone through and spoken to GI specialists in my career, doctors who specialize in digestive disease, and they will tell their patients, eat whatever you want. Food has nothing to do with this disease. That's the face I make every single time here 10 years later.
Unbelievable, which is really interesting because that was gonna be my next question, is that I know that you do, lecture and teach, instruct a lot of physicians, and my question was, even when I was reading this in your bio, it's like, I wonder how that goes. I mean, I wonder how your message is received, and do some of them just, blow it off and poo-poo it, or are they like, "Wow,
Hmm.
that makes perfect sense." I mean.
Well, okay. So Reversing Crohn's and colitis is not something that's common or even popular. You'd be shocked. These people, a lot of the time, unfortunately, their lives are destroyed. Their intimate lives, personal lives, their careers. They get fired because they're sick all the time. They're on medications that cost five to $20,000 a month. Thank God for insurance companies, part of the incestuous pool. And
Mm,
so these people's lives are just decimated. And for me to come in and say, actually, we can fix that. You don't have to live with this. I've been hated on. I've had hate mail. I've been
mhm,
threatened by the community
mhm,
of people who are sick that I'm trying to help, And so it's very sad, but they're in a state where false hope can be very dangerous. So I don't blame them,
mm,
but we've been there. And so I've had the opportunity in my career to connect with several doctors. The reason my career is here today is because doctors, I credit most of my career where it's at right now to Dr. JP Yusuf Salibi. He's actually a doctor who works out of Carolina Holistic Medicine. He brought me into the Priority Health Academy to help teach, to lecture a
mhm,
couple times a year. He introduced me to all these doctors because he was a doctor he's brilliant. And he was working with a client or a patient of his for 3 years. She found me on Facebook. And in 3 months, we just happened to make more strides, leaps and bounds, almost completely fixed from IBD in 90 days, as opposed to
mhm,
3 years. And he's like, I got to meet this guy. And so we got talking and now we're here. But I've had the opportunity to connect with many doctors of my clients
mhm,
over the years, many, several dozen. I've had three in my entire career, Cheryl, who have actually said, I want to connect with you and emailed. And I've emailed follow up. To this day, I have
mhm.
never connected with a GI specialist of one of my clients. They're too busy, their hands are tied, they're not
Wow.
interested. I've had people go back. And Cheryl, people diagnosed with Crohn's disease. I had a lady, Ashley, it's all public information. I can use her name, her testimonials on the websites. But she went out to her doctor after 12 weeks. She had Crohn's disease prior, blood in the stool, discomfort. 12 weeks, she went back to her doctor after running through one of our protocols, completely symptom free. They did a scope, they did a CT enterography, no symptoms, no signs of Crohn's disease
Wow.
anywhere. And she said, well, here was my GI map. Here's what it showed. That's a stool sample. We read the gut bacteria. And here's what we did. She goes, well, I'm not interested in seeing that. And her doctor says, well, and also you have Crohn's disease, though. I'd like you on Entyvio. That's a biological drug that is an immunosuppressive drug. I want to suppress your immune system because you have a disease. She goes, where's the disease? Well, it's in your chart. So now we're treating charts and not patients. The doctor wanted to still give her immunosuppressing drugs for a disease
God.
that no longer existed. And this is the system we're up against. It's crazy. And she said, I'm not interested in looking at that GI map. She goes, great. I'm not interested in your Entyvio. I don't want your drugs. And that was the last of their conversation. And
Wow.
so they're not all like that, but that's
Uh-huh.
a very real part of the battle and why patients have to advocate for themselves and what I want to give people the power to do.
Mhm,
Diseases are not random. They do not just fall out of the sky. It's not because God hates you. It's not bad luck. It's not genetic.
mhm,
Something might exploit your genetics, but these diseases happen for a reason, and we can so easily reverse them once we find it.
mhm.
Mold and fungus are the top two most common things that are undetected, and that's it. And we can reverse these things, and people get better, and they don't have to live with crippling digestive disease anymore.
Okay, so on this note, I'm going to go right into how can people get a hold of you?
Sure.
Where can they find you? How can they connect with you? Give us some of your social media links. I mean, of course, they're in the show notes, but I really like for the guests to be able to articulate that.
Absolutely, sure. I'm great time to. I'm getting I get amped up about this stuff. It drives me nuts that people have to be sick when it can be so easy. Best way to reach me is through my website. That's gutsolution.ca. You can find all my social media links there. That's joshdech.health. That's Dech, DECH. I do have that podcast. That's Reversible, spelt reverse
Mhm,
able, the ultimate gut
mhm,
health podcast, where it's like you said, we talk about all things gut. It's how the world influences our gut, how our world or how the gut influences our world and our well-being and all kinds of stuff around just the gut. And of course, that's all found at gutsolution.ca. You can find all the information that you need.
mhm. Well, Josh, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been so enlightening. I've been looking forward to this for quite a while, but I
Okay.
had no idea you were going to blow my mind quite like you did. So it was truly mind boggling. But what incredible information and what an amazing message of hope
Mm,
and empowerment that you're sharing with people that they do not have to live like that. I mean, we have the ability to take our health and into our own hands. All we
yeah.
have to do is take that first step.
That's it. It's 100% on us. And I know, and just a last word, if I could, there's so many people. I've had people come in 16, 15, 20, 25 years, whatever the number of dealing with inflammatory bowel disease, ulcerative colitis.
Wow.
And The reverse. I'm actually flying out to Houston or to Dallas this month in a couple weeks. It's February 8th. I'm flying out. I'm doing a TV show on the 20th, TV
Mhm.
show called Know the Cause. And it just so happens one of my clients that I had seen had 16 years of inflammatory bowel ulcerative colitis and nothing worked. And 6 months, he's completely symptom free. All of his scans, no more disease. He's gone. It's great. And his one of his good friends just happens to be the host of this TV show called Know the Cause. And so we're flying out there to talk to them and just share this message. And so we're getting there. And I wish
Mhm.
that we could get this out there to more people. It's not
Mhm.
popular. I think one day maybe the big pharma executives will hire a hitman. Who knows? But the idea is we want hope, and it's not hopeless. It doesn't matter how long it's been there. There's always
Mhm.
another way. You just have to find your roots. And the last analogy I'll leave you with, just to hammer this one home. Imagine, Cheryl, you go to the doctor and you have a thorn in your hand, right? And it's stuck in there and it's swollen and it's infected and it's bleeding. Your whole hand hurts. It's been there for 6 months or 6 years. You go to the doctor and what do? They give you ointment for the pain. You'd be pissed off. You'd be asking questions. Look at them like they got three heads. Like, why aren't you pulling out the thorn? My
Mhm.
hand's been chronically inflamed, so to speak. I know what's causing it. The
Mhm.
problem is no one's looking for the thorn in your digestive system. No one's looking for the thing that triggered this inflammatory response that led to this
Mhm.
disease. Whether or not it's autoimmune is beside the point. We can still help with that too. But we have to look for your thorn. There's always a reason why it's happening. And that's my message to you as a listener. Just look for it. If you don't know what the cause is, we can find it.
Mhm. Wow, that's so empowering. I just love that. And I have been in the position where, let's just say figuratively, I had the thorn in my hand and everybody's pointing somewhere else. And I'm like, you might want to look at the thorn.
Yeah, it can be so obvious sometimes, and they're just looking away. And I'm standing there going, "Look, the thorn is right here." And the doctor's going, "No, it's not. It's
It's
crazy."
not in the chart. The
Yeah,
thorn
it's
isn't in the
not in the
chart. It
chart.
can't be true.
I know. If you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Exactly. Well, Josh, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, Cheryl. Thank you so much for having me and just giving me a platform to share this message. I think the world needs to hear it.
Oh, it certainly does, Ollie. That's for sure. Okay, and everybody, thank you so much for listening. What an incredible episode, and what a wonderful message of hope. And just to remember that we can take our health into our own hands. We don't have to hand over our personal authority to somebody else. You are your own expert, and you are the person who is responsible for your health. And we got wonderful people like Josh who could help you if you are having digestive issues. Have any questions, whatever, do contact him. As you can tell, he's a great guy and he sure does know his stuff. Oh, and remember, look for the thorn and don't ignore it. And that is the way of the FemiNinja.